L-I-V-E, folks. The good old Facebook Live. You know, one day we're going to be streaming on every channel. There's going to be a bunch of them, not just Facebook and YouTube. It's going to be like...
Can't wait for that to happen. It's going to be awesome when that happens. We'll feel like we're arrived. We've arrived. And then hopefully continue to bring forth flowing content and helping the world.
Sharing powerful, authentic stories, our own.
That's what I'm hoping to do.
Not like this bullshit Mormonism.
Oh, God.
Good morning, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We are going to be having a great episode momentarily here on what?
Mormonism.
Mormonism, folks.
Total cray-cray.
Total
craziness.
Total irrationality. 100%.
All right, let me get everything set up here, and then I'll set up the audio, and we'll get right on into this beautiful piece of work. This beautiful flowing content. All right. Well, good morning out there in beautiful Podcast Nation. Morning on this beautiful Sunday here in Duluth. Nice and sunny and beautiful out. And I'm here with my boy JR today. This is the Recovery Atheist, and we're here. And I just want to say that I am so happy that you decided to join us today. Very happy.
Happy. L-I-V-E, folks.
Happy, joy, happy, joy. Ren and Stimpy. So today, what we're going to take some time today. We don't want to rush this one because there's a lot of good information here. And with all my audience out there, I all know, both of us know that you're not brainwashed, correct?
We hope not.
At least we hope not.
And if you are, we're trying to speak to it.
We're hoping to show you the truth about some of these religions that are out there.
These fictional stories that people sell us to try and manipulate us.
There's a reason I'm called the Recovery Atheist. I'm attacking the religious faith.
Let's just be real, though. That's good. Like, most people don't realize that. Like, what you're doing is a good thing. It's a mission. Like,
it's a service.
There's so many people that are just blindly and delusionally believing in something for no reason. And then when you start to audit all these religions like you're starting to do, it's really cool because it forces people to ask themselves, why am I really doing this?
Why don't we stop believing in religion and start believing in ourselves?
It's just remarkable. So I think it's a great stuff, and I think it's really cool.
All right, so today we're going to talk about Mormonism. I talked about Scientology last week or week and a half ago, and I'm going to touch more on that eventually. That's got so much information to go through. It's insane. But Mormonism, I sat down this week, and I started going through it, and it was just like, it just kept adding up and adding up and adding up. More and more stuff that I was just looking, oh my Lord, yes. And I say, Lordy. It was horrible what I was seeing.
The more you lean into it, the more irrational you think, like, wow, this doesn't make any sense. It makes you realize the power of fictional story, because the more you dive into it, it's like, this makes no fucking sense. How is there so many people believing in all these stories?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, remember back when George W. was trying to be president his second term, Mitt Romney was the candidate on the Democratic side.
And Mitt's still in politics, right?
He still is in politics. He's a huge Mormon. Mm-hmm. Huge Mormon. I voted for him that year. I don't know if I would have known some of this stuff behind it. But you can see why, when I go through this, why he wasn't elected. The Christian faith definitely was going to stand up against him and say, not going to let this guy in. So, here we go. Are we ready for this?
Yeah, let's lean into it. So what's the basic root of Mormonism? Okay. What are some of the characteristics? Because I don't even know. I know a couple, but I don't know all of them.
Well, Mormonism was created by, and remember,
thanks for being with us, folks.
That key word, created.
Created, exactly. Great point, Del. Generated. At one point, all these stories were generated by someone, folks.
So we call that what?
Fictional storytelling.
Thank you.
Everything is a fictional story. Once you realize that everything that we say, even our own stories, is fictional. We believe it, but in order for someone else to believe it, that you have to tell it in a powerful, authentic, real, like, vulnerable fashion.
So somehow it was told in a way that some people, I guess, and I said this earlier, were naive, and I'm just going to say it, weak-minded.
But 100% agree, Del. But at the same time, you have to look at the fact that religion was started so long ago. It was probably periods of time when it all started that where people were very fearful, uneducated, and easily manipulated.
True.
So I think now,
I'll give them that.
right? I agree with you, but I think it's just now today we should be able to move forward, and I think that's why it's really cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's time to move beyond these elementary stories. But that's just my opinion. Once again. But yeah, let's lean into it. So what are the key characteristics if someone's a Mormon, Del? Give us a little backstory on Mormonism. Give us a few details on what it is like to be Mormonism and a little bit of the history behind it.
Okay, so Mormonism was created by a man by the name of Joseph Smith. He is their leader. We talked about Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. This is the same context. Joseph Smith, to give you a little backdrop on him, before he created Mormonism, he had been found guilty of fraud 2 times.
Fraud, folks.
So he had twice tried to make himself out to be something that he was not. And then he creates this.
A little bit of a red flag.
So Mormonism, the whole story of it is that Jesus, after his resurrection, ended up coming to America and touching down and telling his stories to the Native Americans.
And this is so interesting.
They call it another testament of Christ.
Who came up with that? Who saw that? Who's making this statement? It's like it's just someone making a statement, right?
Correct. I mean, it's Joseph Smith making this up.
It's just another man.
There's no proof to any of this. So it started in the 1820s in western New York. I talked to your brother about it. I said Ohio. The Ohio thing comes in later.
Oh, yeah.
But western New York during a period known as the Second Awakening. And what that was that's when Pentecostal revivals and Presbyterian revivals started hitting hard in this country. That's when people were getting away from Catholicism out of the Dark Ages, was waking up to Christianity, and that's kind of when it started, when Christianity started taking hold.
Was that around our founding days? Like, was that when America was being founded?
About 50 years after.
50 years
but
after.
Remember, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, everything like that was going on, and then this is where the Bible started being used heavily, and the Christian faith started becoming planted in this country as a seed. So, he was seen by his followers, Joseph Smith, as a modern-day prophet.
Wow.
Okay?
That's bizarre.
Now, the story of how it was created. This is where, in South Park, there's a great episode to it. Dum-da-dum-dum-dum. Anyway.
Thanks for paying attention, John. Your attention is our oxygen. John said, I'm forgiven by God, not religion. But let's just keep going, Bill.
So, when it comes down to it, is he found golden plates. He was walking through the woods one day. I always find it funny how they're just walking randomly by themselves when they find this stuff. He's walking through the woods there in western New York. And he finds these golden plates, and on it there's a reformed Egyptian language. And he says that he found these stones. They're called Urim and Thummim, and they are seer stones, and that is what he uses to translate the plates. How he did this is he would put them into a bag with the plates, these stones, and look into it, and they would light up and tell him in English what to tell the person who was writing the story.
Sounds like someone on a little bit of too much LSD.
Well, it's definitely, he was able to say whatever he wanted to say. Now, get this. They were about 144 pages in, and it got destroyed.
Wow.
They went back, and when he did the second translation, even the person who was doing the writing the translation questioned him because it wasn't the same story.
Yeah, discrepancies, folks. That's where you can start to really find out people being authentic or real or vulnerable.
He said, well, obviously,
start to find discrepancies.
He used it as obviously God wanted him to change the Testament. That's why the papers were destroyed.
Craziness.
He couldn't keep his story straight.
I just want to say, John, I think you have to forgive ourselves before anything. I don't think God does anything for us. I think we as individuals first have to forgive ourselves.
And John, definitely, and I agree with you. If you're going to believe in God, please don't do it religiously. Yeah. Do it as a real, true faith in God. I have nothing but respect for people who are going to believe in that and truly believe it wholeheartedly without it being a religious context.
Yes, I agree 100% because religious doctrine to me is the issue.
I'm not going to judge you, John, for believing in God. I have my beliefs on it, and you have yours.
But I don't bring religious doctrine to
But
those
I'm
ideas.
not. Yeah, I'm not going to let for me personally, I'm not going to let a higher power of God forgive me. I need to forgive myself first.
For me,
to be able to do this.
If I don't forgive myself, we don't have any chance. So let's keep going with that.
You
though.
got it.
So yeah, he was reading the stones, and he was basically saying the
So
book ended.
an angel showed him in the woods where the plates were in 1823. They began the translation in 1827. And what's funny is after
This was all back in 1827.
Yeah, this is all back in the 1820s. So
Wow.
after he was done translating, mysteriously the plates come up missing, and they ask him, his followers ask him about it. He says, "Oh, I returned them to the angel." So,
Oh my God.
as they're going through this and they're becoming Mormons,
OMG.
the Mormons throughout the 1930s were chased off from different states. I mean, literally beat the hell and killed.
Crazy.
And of course, they use that as this is persecution. Again, we must be right. So they went from New York to Ohio, Ohio to Missouri. Now, Missouri is interesting because they still believe in Mormonism that Jesus is going to touch down on this small little town in Missouri, and that's going to be where the new earth and heaven begins. They still believe that.
So I just want to interject quick, Del. I think being married to our ideas and perceptions is a huge red flag, folks. And part of what Del's doing is he forces himself to audit things and ideas and perceptions. That's a big part of what we do here is we have dialogue on stuff, and then it forces us to not be married to our ideas and perceptions and beliefs and now audit them. And we're just simply auditing this religion. And if you just want to be neutral and be honest with yourself, you can't sit here and say some of this stuff isn't rational.
I'm just putting the information out there for people to see what it really is.
It's valuable, though, folks.
I challenge you. Go fact check me.
Audit it, though. It's crazy.
Go fact check me.
Yeah,
this
you
is
just did
real.
it.
Okay,
Yeah. This is all research.
I spent 2 days. We're talking hours going through this and looking at this. Go fact check it.
So I think it's powerful, though, Del, not letting people realize that we don't all have to be married to everything, and that we can have dialogue on stuff. You don't have to be married to your religious belief. You can change. We're not saying it's wrong, right or wrong. We're just saying this is our perspective.
It's our perspective.
We're challenging.
My
we're
perspective
challenging the
is
stories.
that religion is
a crazy story.
not doing anything to help this world.
I agree 100%. And I think there's stories that are manipulating people. So I just think it's really cool. I think it's understanding that we don't have to be married to our ideas and our beliefs is a big part of this.
Correct. All right, so they moved from Missouri to Illinois, and then finally Illinois to Utah, where they're at right now. Okay, now 1844, the tensions, between the Mormons and non-Mormons started to escalate, and Smith was trapped by a mob and beat to death. Joseph Smith, their leader, their creator, their prophet, so special and touched by God.
There must have been some gangster shit going on.
He was killed
by the mob.
By a mob.
Sounds like someone, I just want to interject, that was running a religious cult that got a bunch of money from people that was then using it to do some crazy
and the town
shit.
went nuts and said, "You're dead."
Sounds about right.
Chased him off again.
It's like a gang leader, essentially.
Right. So no evidence. Now, the Book of Mormon is a story about this family called of Lehi, which is a Israeli family, and that they ended up sailing across the Atlantic to America and settling in America. That's what the Book of Mormon says. There is no historical documentation of any of this. There has been no Egyptian or Hebrew relics or writings ever found in America. So, no, didn't happen. Mormonism has been compared to Islam with their beliefs. It's very close. You got Muhammad as the prophet. You got Joseph Smith as the prophet. They're very comparable. Weird Mormon beliefs. This is okay. Tithing is mandatory. Now, most churches have tithing, 10%, that you give to the church to help with their expenses.
Tithing is your donation, your fiscal donation, correct?
Exactly. Theirs is mandatory. You cannot be part of the church without giving it. No coffee, no drugs, no tobacco.
You can't be part of the church without offering money.
Yeah, isn't it?
Folks, let's just really contemplate that for a minute.
Well, even my mom and dad's church is the same way. You cannot be considered a member of the church unless you're giving 10% of your income.
That's a lot.
If it was me, I'd be having to give up $80 to $100 every payday.
Folks, let's just be real. That is fucked up. That makes no sense.
That's money I need.
Let's be real, people. This is a big deal because, Del, you're talking about vulnerable adults in the world today. And not only in today, but in past times, when people were less educated and less, like, awake and aware. This is manipulation, folks. If I'm some guy with a story I pitch and sell you, and I'm going to force you to give me money, that is complete bullshit. It's completely different if I ask and you have the freedom to decide. But at the same time, it is complete bullshit for me to demand and force you to have to give money to be a part of my group or my cult.
Correct.
Like, that to me is completely the complete opposite of God. God is, to me, if I had one, I don't really have a God. My God is like just the world and the earth and the universe. It's just everything as a whole together flowing and working to me is a miracle. So, like, that's my higher power. It's everyone around me, and it's the magic of humans connecting to other humans and the magic of the world going around and everything, like, operating in a fluid fashion. To me, that's remarkable. So I think that's – but, yeah, I just think if I had a God, he would never force me to pay money to be part of his beliefs.
Well, and that's the way most religions are. You have to pay. You have to pay.
It's a big characteristic.
You have to pay the cost to be able to be a part of it.
My number one issue with growing up a Catholic is at the end of the Mass when they pass the basket around twice. Like, it's like, what the? It's like, it's literally like a formed. It feels so mob-like in the Catholic Church when you go to church on Sunday, and you're listening to the service, and then all of a sudden they try and. It's like, okay, now everyone offer up your money at the end. It just makes. It feels literally like it's run like a professional mob, the Catholic Church, in my experience. I grew up in it, and to me it feels like a complete mob that's trying to, like, manipulate the people and get them to give them money.
Well, and the other thing that you haven't mentioned is it's all tax-free. It's all tax-free. Everything with religion is tax-free. So you don't pay any taxes. Now, with my dad, it screws him over. He has to put money aside because at the end of the year he has to pay in. So he doesn't make enough money. But you look at, like, Kenneth Copeland. He's making $600 million a year. Tax-free. Tax-free. And with that amount of money, he's got so much loopholes to be able to get around taxes. And the lawyers, he can pay the lawyers to do it for him.
So
got a $6.5 million estate.
So
I calls a parsonage.
So I call unethical manipulation of the consumer by businesses bad, but
5
folks,
airplanes.
This is more extreme. What he's talking about right there with Kenneth Copeland. This is unethical manipulation of people that are fearful of dying, people that are uneducated. Like, religion to me is that's why I thought it was so cool when I moved to Duluth. And my brother told me about Del and his story and what he wanted to do with his podcast. I was like, wow, this is really fucking cool because, listen, folks, my whole point of my show is about storytelling. It's about the power of fictional storytelling. We go on the show. We have other people on to share their stories and perspectives and ideas because then you realize that every story is a fictional story and that if I tell it in a powerful, authentic fashion, you might believe it. So the number one enemy of all fictional stories, and for us as humans to come together, the objectiveness to do that, we have to overcome religion and we have to overcome money. Because the two things that keep most of us doing what we're doing is religion and money. So it's really cool. But yeah, I just love this.
So the spirit world, we talk about ghosts, things of that nature that people say that
Thanks,
is
Derek.
real.
Derek said he loves this, though.
Oh, thank you so much, Derek. Appreciate it. Derek. So they believe that the spirit world exists as a place for spirits to go while awaiting the second coming of their Lord Jesus Christ. That the ghosts that supposedly people see and stuff like that are dead spirits waiting for the Lord to come back. They have live current prophets.
Are you one of them?
Woo! No, they do. They have an actual prophet right now that gives them guidance.
I'm a prophet, folks. I'm just going to demand.
Jesus has made me a prophet,
I've
and
just
they're
been-
self-proclaimed.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm a prophet. We could sit here and call ourselves prophets.
I'm a prophet of the atheistic movement.
How egotistical. There's nothing more ego.
Follow me.
It's so gaudy. God and ego go hand in hand, in my opinion. Don't you think? Don't you think God and ego go hand in hand?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an ego
To
involved.
self-proclaim that you're a god.
I'm
or
a prophet.
That's a little egotistical.
Unreal. They believe God, Jesus, resurrected beings have bodies of flesh and bone. So they look at God and Jesus as being flesh and bone people. They're real. Only males can have priesthood. No blacks were allowed into Mormons until 1978. And they
so they were around for 150 plus years before they let black folks in the church.
And they still, to this day, women cannot be a minister.
Wow. This is interesting stuff, folks, when we start to look at it, because we literally have all these religions. This is a big religion in America. There's states like Utah and Hawaii where Mormonism is prevalent. And we're talking, it's 2020. It is time for us to move beyond not letting a woman be a pastor. It's time for us to move beyond racial segregation. And we're talking about a church that currently exists all over America and is present, has a strong presence. And they have, this is so elementary. It's so crazy for me to think about all these religions that there are out there that a lot of us don't even realize are running our life. We let fictional stories like money and religion control us, and we don't even know it. Don't even know it. The majority of us never wake up to realize that money and religion are fictional, and we give them value, and we believe in them, so then we spend the rest of our life chasing them and believing in them. It's crazy.
Now, this next point is interesting.
Yeah?
They don't believe in hell.
Huh. So you can't go to hell in the Mormon
No,
eyes.
they have 3 tiers of heaven. They have the celestial, which is the highest. That's where God and the ones who followed his laws reside.
This is the stuff that really irks my bubble the most. I hear stuff like this. Tears to heaven. Like you're classified on the day of
You have
death.
to earn your level. It's almost like Scientology. You notice how they all of these crazy ones have levels, like even Jehovah's Witnesses.
Levels of crazy, folks.
Okay, they have levels.
Levels. So you have to be... So there's a judgment day. I just don't get judgment days. So
I don't get it either.
It's like, so the day we die, we would then be classified. It's like being booked in prison or jail, folks. You get classified as a violent offender, as whatever offender. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me that it's like when you go to heaven, you're classified as good or good enough or better or best?
Exactly.
Come on, folks.
So the next one down is called terrestrial. This is middle heaven. I call it Middle Earth.
So
the Lord of the Rings.
So I'm guessing I'd probably be in Middle Earth or the next one.
It says where people who followed the laws of Moses reside. So if you're a Christian who is not a Mormon, that's where you're going.
Yikes, folks. Just because it's just bizarre.
If you follow the laws of Moses, that's Christians.
You're automatically going to the Middle Earth. You can't even go to the...
Can't even go to the highest unless you're a Mormon. Telestial, that's the lowest one. And this is where me and JR would be at, according to Mormon and Christian law. Where the ones who followed carnal law resides.
Carnal law?
They call it carnal law.
It's remarkable.
Come on, bring it. I know you have stuff going through your head right now.
This is remarkable. So it just, to me, it reminds me of going to jail or prison, and you're classified. So, folks, if you're a violent offender in jail, it's like, okay, the telestial. What was the third one? Telestial?
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial. That's the violent offender level. That's like the guys that are like, I'm just going to...
Oh, you're talking about the lower level?
I'm just correlating
Telestial.
the classification of
so
being an
got
inmate.
Celestial, terrestrial, and then us.
So if you're an inmate, I would say the one's violent offender and sex offender. And then the other one, the middle one's like, misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors. And the top one, I guess, is someone that's never broken the law and 100% never drank coffee.
And they were innocently accused.
Innocently. And then they've never taken a sip of liquor. They've
never had a cigarette.
Never did any of that. Never had sex. Oh, no, wait. In the Mormon culture, you can have multiple wives, right?
Well, okay. Let me get to that.
Let's get to that because
I'll get to that right now.
It's like you're weaving a web of everything that you want. And you're like, picture if you made a story, and like me and you wanted to have the life we wanted, and we wanted to make it like we're the gods. Like, to me, that's what this feels like.
Well, that's the biggest...
I can have this, I can do this, I can't do that.
That's the biggest thing that people remember about Mormonism, or what they bring up is, aren't they polygamists? Don't they believe in having multiple wives?
They used to be originally, and then they changed, correct?
The reason why is because it is allowed in the Book of Mormon. So the original Mormons, and there's still to this day those extremist Mormons that are living out in Utah that have multiple wives, even though it's against the law in Utah and they get arrested for it and all that. In fact, I was watching a documentary on it.
Well, you can go to jail for having multiple wives?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
You can only be married to one person at a time.
Bizarre. All right, interesting.
So like even swingers that do that, do you know you can actually get a ticket for that?
Wild. I got a ticket in Hawaii for having sex on the beach. It just gets so crazy, the laws and legislation we have.
Yeah,
if
you can't have free sex.
You
Forget
can't
it.
have
free
passionate love on a beach in the middle of Hawaii.
Can't explore your sexuality.
Like,
I mean, we still
these
got
laws that we come up with. You realize that we create these as well, folks.
We still have laws in some states where you can't do oral sex in your own home.
It's just nuts.
It's illegal. But anyway, so polygamy. I was watching a documentary as I was researching this. There was a guy who got arrested in Utah. He's in prison right now because he had wives that were like 13 and 14 years old.
That's fucking sickening, folks.
Okay, in fact, they were the daughters of some of his other wives.
That is fucking sickening.
That were not his kids, but were somebody else's that came into Mormonism, and he ended up marrying their daughters.
You talk about sick, brother. You're talking about that's fucking sick. That means you're like preying on women, and then you're
right.
Yikes.
So it was allowed in the Book of Mormon. The extreme ones believe it. The regular Mormons do not. They are not for it, and they condemn and completely bring themselves away from those types of Mormons. But the reason why it was there is because it was allowed in the Book of Mormon. In fact, Joseph Smith had them. So, again, they can't make up their mind what they want to believe in either, just like every other religion out there that splits off from each other because they don't agree with certain doctrines or certain ways of translating the Bible. They can't get on the same page with that either. So they split. There's two different types of Mormons. Yeah, that's crazy. So
It is crazy.
only two sins are unforgivable. Now, in Christian faith, there's one sin that's unforgivable, and that's blasphemy. Which, with me, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry, it's happened. So I'm probably going to hell.
Fuck that. You're not going to hell.
You know, fuck God. Fuck Jesus. See, that's blasphemy, and I'm probably going to go to hell.
Based on every religion, brother, we would go to hell on one or the other. So no matter what you think about it, you're going like, fuck, that's not possible.
Well, what's funny about it is in Christian faith, when you do that, supposedly you're turned over to a reprobate mind, which means you cannot be forgiven. You turn over into this horrible, horrible person. No, I have morals. I'm a good person. I'm a secular humanist. I'm not trying to hurt people. It hasn't turned me into anything.
He hasn't transformed into some
devil.
prophet or devil.
Some devil. No.
We're not going
to. Anyway, so there too is denying the Holy Spirit, saying it's not real, and murder.
So those are the two punishments?
If you commit murder, it's unforgivable. While in the Christian faith you commit murder, Jeffrey Dahmer, after doing what he did, turned over to God and was saved, and I guess supposedly he's in heaven now.
Bizarre.
Okay. Multiple worlds. They believe that there's multiple worlds out there. That there's multiple gods. They're polytheist. They believe that there's multiple worlds, multiple gods, each having their own universe, and that there is not one true God.
Now that I can kind of get down a little bit with. That's the first thing I've heard through this all where I could understand where there might be multiple gods.
I was very, that shocked me, that they're polytheist. They believe in that there's more than one God out there. That's
to me, that's the only rational thing I've heard about Mormonism this whole time so far, is the fact that they are polytheist.
They're polytheist.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So now, everyone knows that Mormons, when they get into their middle teenage years and into being first as an adult, they go on missionary trips. There was a great Broadway show that Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South Park created. It was called The Book of Mormon. And I went and saw it. It was so vulgar. It was amazing how they put the Mormons down in it. But anyway, they go on these missionary tours. For 2 years for the men, 18 months for females, and then for older couples with no children in the home, they can do 1 to 3 years. The missionaries have to pay for their missionary work. The church doesn't pay for it. So they start saving up for it during their teenage years to go on these trips.
Yeah.
Okay. There's over 1 million missionaries have been sent on missions throughout the church history. Rules to be a missionary. to be able to even go in the first place. You have to have regular attendance at the church meetings, regular personal prayer, regular study of the scriptures, sexual purity. You have to be a virgin. Unless the older couples don't. But the male and the female younger teenagers have to be a virgin. You have to adhere to the word of wisdom. It's a code of health and nutrition. So that's probably the tobacco, the coffee, and then eating healthy.
And having lots of sex with women that have children, and then having sex with their children, which makes no sense.
Again, those are the extreme Mormons. You have to do the payment of tithe. You have to make sure you're doing your tithe.
You have to pay your 10%.
Yep, and then spiritual diligence and testimony of God. You have to spread your word, your story, and spread the word of God. Have you heard the story of Jesus and how he came down on America, the Second Testament of Christ?
Nope.
Anyway, they have no contact while they're on their missionary mission here. They have no contact with the outside world. Can only, unless it's to do their testimony, can only call their parents on Christmas Day and Mother's Day, but are allowed to write letters.
So, yeah, I mean, ultimately everything we're talking about makes us it just shows auditing this religion. It just shows all the areas of vulnerability and the areas of weakness that make it sound irrational. And you can't really make something so irrational sound rational to me in any scope or lens. The only thing I heard that had any sense or common sense to it was the belief in polygods, where there might be multiple gods. And I could see a world where there's many gods.
Right.
But I am not here to say I'm right or wrong. But at the same time, it just makes you realize, wow, man, how do we get to how is there a society that is operating 100% in belief of this? It just makes you realize that, like with me being so consumed with the fictional story and the power of it, like it makes me realize how powerful it is.
Well, they are the second
people living this.
They are the second richest religion in this country. Scientology being number one, 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion.
Scientology.
Folks. Wow. What's Catholic?
I have 600 million.
Oh wow, it's
per year.
Growing small. Scientology
Something like
is
600,
number
800
one.
million. And then Mormons are the second.
So we got Scientology one,
and then the Catholic
billion.
Church, and then the Catholic Church.
Wow. That's some major cheddar.
It is.
1.5 billion.
So an email account is provided, but is monitored. They're auditing you, completely all the time. It's monitored closely for anyone wanting to leave early and go home before finishing their missionary commitment. It's like Scientology. We're not going to let you go. You cannot date while serving missions. They may interact with the opposite sex, but no intimate, physical, or emotional activity. How is that possible?
It sounds like someone that's trying. It makes sense.
It's a robot.
It starts to make sense if you think about it, because in order for you to be in this cult, you basically are going to be disconnected from anyone that could pull you from it.
How can you not have an emotional response? I mean, is this the movie Equilibrium? We have no emotions? How can you not have an emotional response when you're talking to a woman and she makes a joke or you make a joke and you laugh? That's an emotional response. How can you not have an emotional response, people? If you can tell me this, I would like to know. Please let me know in the comments.
And why are you believing? I want to ask every Mormon, if we could get a Mormon on the show, that'd be fun. I would love that right now. I want to start doing that. Like anyone that, after going through all this, that wants to sit
or
down.
who has been through it and has gotten out of it or knows a family member who's in it, I would love to talk
Love it, because ultimately, folks, there's no one. I would love to have them sit here rationally and give any kind of dialogue where this is rational.
Email me at therecoveryatheist@gmail.com if you have any new information to give me about this, some insight. Please email me.
See, the hard part with this, though, in my experience, Dell, is I have an actual aunt, Michelle. Hey, Michelle. And I'm just going to be honest. I love you, Michelle, but Michelle is a little unstable. Okay. So this is why I have a lot of correlations, because I've met Mormons. I've met them in Hawaii, and then I actually have a family member that was one. And she was a vulnerable adult. She was mentally unstable somewhat.
Taken advantage of.
And she was totally manipulated.
Okay.
So the hard part with getting a lot of people on from these kind of things, I feel like in my perspective, is a lot of them aren't really, they're kind of out there in left field. And those are the ones they're going to reel in. Like, to me, that's another topic to bring up, is how these beliefs are really crucial, people, because they start to prey on the weak people of our societies.
They do.
They vulnerably manipulate the vulnerable people. So if you think about people like my aunt, she's an amazing woman, don't get me wrong, but my aunt has struggled with some mental illness like bipolar and schizo. So she was a target, and they totally 100% had her believing in everything, and she just said yes to it hardcore. And now she's not it, but yeah, she had a period where I witnessed it firsthand where she shifted all these beliefs, and she was like all about it. She wouldn't stop talking about it, and her friend brought her in that was kind of a little bit loopy. So I think it's just interesting. I think it is hard to get some of these people, because you have to be a little bit off your rocker, wouldn't you say, to believe in this?
I would think so.
A
Like
little
I
bit.
said, weak-minded, that you're going to believe in something this out there. I guess, you know, when I look at all of this, especially with the missionary, they live a rigid schedule. They're up at 6:30 every morning. They go through their normal day of what they have to do, their devotions, and then they're going out and testifying and then coming back. They do it in partners, so the other one can watch the other one, make sure they're not doing anything wrong. And they're in bed by 10:30 every night. What I see through all this missionary is I see a good prison system.
Yeah. To me, that sounds
They're monitoring your contact. You're monitoring your email, your letters, your everything else that's going out.
And then once
you have a rigid schedule. You can't have any contact sexually.
it's a prison system.
It's a prison system.
And then once you're done, you're classified about how good you behaved within that system.
Exactly. And when you get back to the church after the 2 years, whether or not you're going to be successful and rise the ladder in the mission or in the Mormon faith goes off how well you did with your mission.
Sounds like a prison system. 100%.
It does, doesn't it?
100%.
All right. The last thing I want to bring up, and I left it to the last because this is one of the most craziest things I've ever heard in my life. And I knew about it, and I finally went into it and looked at it, and then after this, we're just going to talk about religion and fictional stories.
Yeah.
They wear sacred temple underwear.
I got some real sacred temple underwear for you folks.
They call them sacred temple garments.
What are yours, Del?
They're sometimes I go commando, so I don't wear any at all.
But keep going. They're
Keep
sacred,
it loose, baby. Keep it loose.
Sacred temple garments.
They are worn, and it promotes purity. They have been blessed. They're blessed underwear.
They have blessed penises and vaginas.
They're white in color, and you wear them under your clothes at all times.
Their vaginas and penises have been
It's
blessed.
like a chastity belt, a modern-day chastity belt.
Remarkable. It's interesting, though, when you look at it, because I start to look at the base of a society, and I start to look at when we first started, because religion is so old. And I'm like, yes, I can understand some like the Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and they have this belief in reproduction and pro-life, which I am kind of, in many ways, I'm for that in many ways, because I believe it produces more fits of a species.
Right.
So, like, the more life you have, if you say yes to it, that means you're going to have life that comes from lower circumstances, and the more fit conditioned species comes from that. But at the same time, I just think at the base of every society, you have these things like law and legislation, you have human rights, you have money, and you have religion as well as the government. So we as people, we create our societies based on all those things. Like, we have these ideas. Like, if you look at every country, Del, right? Like, every country has different human rights. So
Yes.
that's interesting. And then that influences who you elect to your offices as
Yes.
government officials. And those are the people that we then have draft laws and legislation for.
Correct.
And those laws are constantly changing.
As I call it, different rules of morality.
Exactly. So that stuff's always changing. And then through all that, we're all, like, this is all stuff that we choose as people. Like, at the base of every society, if a new society started tomorrow, you'd have to elect to choose these things. And in America now, stuff like big businesses are even becoming influential. Like, Amazon is becoming, like, a part of our social system because it has such a big influence over everything. And
Well, that's the biggest thing today is in this country we're able to make choices.
yes.
We get to pick and choose what we want to have in our lives. And I find it very difficult in my mind to think about these people that are choosing these types of religions or these types of ways of belief. I don't understand how they can look at it and think that it's logical or that it's real, that there's substance to it. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
No, I think
Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think that's a great idea to lean into. I think you're right, Del, 100%. I think that's rationally what ideas, like what factors and circumstances go into you believing in something. That's a great point, Del. Because if you look at that, someone that's like, okay, let's assess if this is rational. Like, you're not gonna. Like, you there's just no true. You're just someone that's choosing something to believe in. Like, when I choose to believe in something, if I think it's true or not, I look at, yes, how the story's told, but number one, I look at the facts. Like, what can I measure that is qualitative and quantitative in this that has been proven? What is factual? And
Yeah.
obviously, we have some freedom, like you said, to choose anything we want.
It gets back to the fictional stories. Then.
Yeah, but like, why would we just choose to? I think it comes back to fear. Like, I think a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
people, fear and religion, irrational. Like, a lot of people are consumed by dying or fear or the fear of not being good enough.
Right.
So then they need to choose to believe in something. I think that's, to me, the more fearful you are or more fear-driven, the more likely you are to have irrational, like, there's a correlation between then shooting from the hip and just believing in anything.
So you're saying that you're not going to be joining Mormonism anytime soon?
No, sir. I haven't believed in a God since
I haven't sold you on it?
No. My mom died when I was 19, and since the day my mom died, I've never... So my mom died and I was homeless shortly after. Since that day, I've never really believed in a God because I've realized firsthand, like, there's no God looking out for you. Like, when your mom dies and you end up homeless on the street and you're sitting there with no food and your grandma just put you on the street, your own family just put you on the street after you found your mom dead, you probably, there's no...
But God won't put anything on you that's so tough you can't live through it, and that it's a lesson to teach you and make you stronger, and have faith in Him, and He will bring it home for you.
I do believe in that conditioning and fitness of that, but I don't believe in any of the God shit that you just said. Like, I do agree that when as a creature, the strength I have and the ability I have to survive and sustain correlates with that, and that does build me up into a better, more fit human. But I don't think there's anything to do with God in any of that.
Well, this all comes back to my podcast name, The Recovery Atheist. I'm in recovery. 6 months today, my friend.
Good work, brother.
Right?
G-double-O.
High five.
G-double-O.
6 months today, sober, and I have not thanked God for one iota of it. I am not doing this for God. I do not believe in God. I am doing this for me. And if you want to call that selfish or that I'm being my own higher power, go ahead and do that. But I have gained things in my life without thanking God or having God being involved. So that tells me that it is possible to do this without God. You do not have to have God in recovery to be able to exist, to live, to grow, to become a better person. You have to be human. You have to learn from your mistakes, forgive yourself, and be human. So that goes out in religion in general, as I throw it out there to everybody. Is I honestly, I look at people who are so gung-ho for religion, and they're looking for some kind of comfort. They're not okay with something in their lives.
They're fearful.
And they're looking for something that's going to give them comfort and ease and a feeling of purpose in their existence.
Yeah, which makes sense. A lot of it is just inherently human in a way.
I don't need to do that.
No.
I create my purpose. I create the purpose that I have in my life, and by choosing to do that, I choose purpose that I enjoy and that I want to go after, and because of that, the payoff is so much greater for me and the joy and the happiness I have in my life.
I think that's
I don't need a church to approve me or make me feel like, yep, you're doing the right things.
I think you just made a great point, though, Del. I just want to lean into that. What he's talking about is people that... So I think that's inherently human of us. We inherently, as humans, feel lonely or fearful, and then we want to feel a part of something, or we want to feel like we're a part of a team or a society or a group and belong. We naturally want to feel like we belong. And I think that's a great point, Del. I think that has a lot to do with why people naturally end up attracted to these different beliefs, is because we naturally want to believe that we're involved with something that's bigger than us, better than us, and beyond us. But I don't think I think there's things that we can do that's beyond that. And then also what you said, Dale, is another great point, is purpose. A lot of us want purpose and fulfillment in life, and when you feel like you're a part of something that's bigger than you, you tend to find that. So I think that's a great point.
Well, and again, it comes down to the idea of religion or spirituality. Which one are you going to represent today? Religion can be anything. Religious just means you're doing something consistently. You can religiously work out. I've said this before. Whatever it is that you do religiously. Spirituality is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and how you treat people, how you live your life, and what your ethics and morals are. And how you live that, and the feelings of purpose that you get from it.
That's how I live. I call it S-squared. I live spiritual and scientific.
Right. So I want to be spiritual today. I don't want to be religious. My goal is to be spiritual.
Which is
however is represented by me what my spirituality is.
100% agree with you. Phenomenal point. Religion, to me, I look at it like this. I look at religion as when you take spirituality and simple principles and add a bunch of religious doctrine like we just talked about and all that Mormon stuff. If you just take the golden rule and treating people how you want to be treated and living a good life where you treat people in a fashion where you put them, you treat strangers and human beings as you want to be treated, if not better, and you live in that light and you're living that. And if you just make it simple, golden rule, just live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. It makes it so simple. So simple. But then you add all this religious doctrine, the spiritual principles, and it
just muddies the water.
So yeah.
Because so many religions, look at how many Christian religions we have, and they cannot agree on anything. And every single one of those, First Baptist, Second Baptist, whatever it is, all the different Catholics and Lutherans and Methodists, and you look at all the different religions out there, they cannot agree on what is right and what is wrong on that. And it really comes down to perspective, as we always say. But the truth is that they can't agree with anything, and every single one of them believe that they're the one true church.
John Schutz, thanks, John, for your attention as our auction. He says, congratulations on your 6
Hey,
months.
John, I appreciate that. I really do. I've worked hard to get to where I'm at today and put a lot of effort into this. I'm going to bring this up real quick, just kind of change gears, and then we'll end this off. So remember how I've been talking about, we talked about health care and the costs and expenses of it. Well, I got a thing in the mail yesterday. Health Partners is cutting off my Vivitrol shot. In fact, I got a bill in the mail for $2,600. So I'm going to have to I'm going to talk to the hospital. I'm going to talk to Health Partners next week about it and see what's going on with that, because I thought it was covered. All of a sudden, now it's not. So I might be having to stop Vivitrol. Now, I made it 6 months, which is good, and it was definitely a help, but I might have to go back to my naltrexone pills because those are covered fully. Yeah. And I might just have to have a higher dose of it to be able to deal with it. But it's interesting to me. Remember I said that the shots were like $1,800? Now the hospital's charging $2,600.
Big money.
$2,600 for the shot. So Health Partners has declined. They've paid up to $1,400 of it, and $1,400 of it, and the rest goes on to me. They're only paying $1,400 of it. So I'm going to have to talk to Health Partners. If that's the case, I'm going to have to cut it out, and I'm going to have to go over. So that's kind of on the back of my mind of I'm going to be off the shot. But I did make it 6 months, and it got me to this point, and I'm definitely in a better place to be able to not be on the shot and be on just the regular pills and be okay with that. But it's interesting how with health care, how they can just cut you off, and just think of all the people that are out there that are having their meds cut off because of finances.
100%.
I just want to throw that out there,
that's a great point.
real quick. I mean, money. Let's talk about money with religion. Money drives religion. Mormonism, second most money coming in as a religion. Scientology, number one. Catholicism, they're in number three. Where is this money going?
To build big, fancy buildings in the Catholic Church. Well, I'll speak to the Catholic portion, because I grew up in it. My mom and dad both went to Catholic school. It's not going to, they do some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but they're amazingly building fancy bathrooms and fancy buildings and fancy complexes. They're not, going out and housing the poor.
Well, and they're filling the pockets, too. You look at Scientology, David McCavich, their president. You don't think, their leader, you don't think that he's not filling his pockets with that $1.5 million?
And the other thing is, if you look at religion, they have a history of preying on the weak, right? Like I just said. And even if you look at the Catholic Church not that long ago with their manipulation of the youth and the sexual assaulting of the boys, and
correct.
If you look at religion, they've been doing it for years.
And
They're preying on the vulnerable.
And they move priests around everywhere to get them out of that situation to some place where they're not known.
So it's a doctrine to manipulate people to give them money that are vulnerable and weak. And I think that's 100% true. It's a great point that everything, if you look at it in religion, comes back to money and manipulation of the weak. And if you look at it, folks, it's part of it. It's been part of it, and it continues to happen. And it happened not that long ago with sexual assault.
Right. Well, and I look at Kenneth Copeland as an example of this. If you don't know who that is, look him up. He's the #1 TV evangelist. Yeah, he's even bigger than Joel Osteen, who's another guy that's full of shit. But anyway, yeah, all the prosperity preachers are full of shit. You know, just, you want that popsicle? Get that popsicle. Just ask God for that popsicle. Just get it. Just ask him for it, and he'll give it to you. He'll give you that popsicle.
They're sending you holy water in the mail for a $20 donation.
Exactly. And just put it on this and send your money to us. And that, you know, you got credit card bills? Just put $1,000 donation on your credit card, and those credit card bills will be gone. There's videos of that. People look that up. You got Credo Dollar saying, if I want a $45 million plane, you cannot stop me from asking for that $45 million plane. Anyway, so Kenneth Copeland, what he does is he prays on the week, people with cancer, and they send all their money to him. His own wife has said this: why do you want to spend all this money on cancer treatment and be sick and go with all that when you can sit here and listen to us on Sunday and receive a healing from the Lord?
Well, golly. In the Catholic Church, that healing comes in the shape of sexual assault.
So they send all this money to the church, and they end up dying anyway.
Well, at least their money went to the church.
There's lawsuits that Kenneth Copeland has had to deal with because of this. Please, people, if you got cancer, stop giving your money to the church. Go to the hospital. If you're sick, go to the hospital.
I think it's a great example, though, about how if you take the two most powerful things and put them together, and that's exactly what we have here.
Money and religion.
Money and religion. If you put them together, they're two of the most powerful stories of all time.
And they're the sickest story.
People spend their whole life. Think about paper, folks. Think about printing a piece of fucking paper that now everyone spends their whole fucking life.
And they continue to print it, and it gets cheaper and cheaper.
Just for a piece of paper that they're printing freely. We spend our whole life just in a rat race.
And I'm part of it.
And yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm not.
Well, no, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying I have to deal with it too.
But there's
it sucks.
Extent. Yeah, but there is an extent where we as humans have to take control and be like,
and we choose what we're going to use.
100%. Like, and at the same time, we choose how much we value it. Because I've lived a minimalistic life where now money isn't as huge factor, where I've made things work. I've scrapped, I've crawled, and I've battled to the point where I now always find myself in a situation where I can tend. Like, I don't know how I made it happen, but I moved to Duluth in my business, and I ended up meeting someone based on the risk I'm taking and the things I'm doing, where now I can live minimally and I can do what I love. So,
and that's what I'm doing here. You know, I'm just making a paycheck. I have my PS4. I have this podcast that I'm putting my money into, and the company here. And then also, eventually down the line, you and me, hopefully, small little tiny home.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's the other thing that we're gradually working on is getting tiny homes developed.
If you give people,
why don't you go ahead?
No, I think it's a great point that if you talk about money and religion, that if you can give people a stable platform where they're not letting them dictate their life, it really can change everything. And I think people will start to really wake up if they don't have to let money and religion.
I don't want to be chained to it. I don't want to be chained to it
for the rest of my life, dude. I know you only get one fucking life, and I am not gonna. I decided at a young age I am not gonna let religion and money control me. Like so many people, I was blessed to have this perspective at a young age because my mom died and I was sitting at a crossroads and I was like, I just don't want to do. I just don't want to live my whole life just trying to just do what everyone else is doing and just make money so I can get by and be like everyone else. I specifically wanted to be different, and I had luckily a perspective that I was like, okay, I'm not going to let these things control me. Well, I'm going to take control.
Money is nice. Money is nice to have. It definitely, when you have enough to be able to live on, it gives you a feeling of comfort, of ease, of peace. But again, I'm not living my life where everything is revolved around it. It's nice to have. It's nice to be able to do what you need to do and pay your bills and everything like that. But that's not my ultimate goal. I would love, trust me, with the podcasting that we're doing and this media company that we're building and everything, yes, eventually monetary things are going to happen.
But it's not my main focus.
But this isn't my focus. My focus is to get the voice out there and be able to help
and doing something like this that we enjoy. We get to do something exactly.
There's a woman that I'm talking to right now that I enjoy talking to. And we were going through questions, just talking to each other, and she asked me what I would like to do, what is my dream job. And I said acting would be cool, music would be cool, but I'm already kind of doing it. I am doing it. It's called podcasting. This is a dream job of mine.
It is, folks. Listen, he's right. If you look at podcasting, you're not only doing it's everything in one. So if you do podcasting behind something you believe in or something you're passionate about or educated on, and you record it like we do and we share it, you are now 100% an entertainer, as well as you have a
That's the way I look at it. I'm a creative arts entertainer. I bring my voice to it. Yeah.
But I just want to lean into this a little bit more before we wrap it up. And
Sure.
time, what you're talking about is what we spend our whole life, right? Some of our most valuable resources in life are our time and our energy. And Dell's talking about what most of us, I feel like we're searching our whole life for that, a purpose and a fulfillment. And we're looking, and we don't find it. And I feel like at a young age, I was blessed to have a perspective and awareness to wanting to pursue my dreams and my passions and things that made me happy. So I took a hard left, and I learned to live off the least amount of money possible so that I didn't have to let money and other things control me. And I finally, for living in Hawaii, I got to dictate that. It was the first time in my life where I was like, okay, I have control of my time and my energy, and then finding myself through that and pursuing things that I enjoy doing. And I just think that that would be really cool if you could start to bring that to other people, because I really feel like it's powerful once you stop letting money and religion be the number one controller of your life. Like money, when I say money and religion, I'm talking fear is basically what I'm talking about, letting fear control your life. Because when you think about money and you think about religion,
The big F
I'm
word.
fearfully that I need money to survive, because I'll starve or go without or live on the street. Or fearfully I'm believing in religion because I don't know where I'm going to go after I die, or I don't have something to belong to or purpose from. So I think fear is the number one factor that correlates to all this, is that once you start living a less fearful life, and that comes from putting yourself in positions. I have put myself in more challenging positions. I've been homeless. I've slept in cars. I've done X, Y, Z. And now I'm not fearful of being homeless. I'm not fearful of jail. It's firsthand experience that has given me that, and now I've gotten to a space where I'm like so comfortable because I'm not letting money and religion run my life. So I think that's a big thing.
So many great points, JR.
I think that's a big thing, and I think what you do on your show represents a lot of that.
Right. I just want to get the information out there. I want people to be able to make choices on their own, what sounds logically right and what doesn't for them. I'm not going to sit here and beat it over your head that you should be an atheist. That's not my job. My job, though, is to present the facts in front of you and let you decide.
And just bring awareness and perspective to auditing it. I think that's huge.
We need to look at what our beliefs are and whether or not they hold value or not.
And am I married?
That's what I'm bringing.
And are you married to them? A lot of people are married to them.
Right.
They will
Never, no matter how much facts you show them.
No matter how much, they're married to it. You can show people. That's what's so interesting about that shows the power of fictional story. Something can be true, factual, qualitative, and quantitative, and people still won't believe it. So you're 100% right. It's your choice, people, but ultimately we want to bring the message forward about bringing people empowerment and awareness and perspective, and that comes from sharing stories.
Well, this was a great show today. Great topic, great subject, great content. I want to thank everybody out there for listening, for watching. I want to give a shout out to all the people that download me, especially out there in Europe, in Ireland, and France. Again, I would love to see a little competition go again, with you, both of you countries, just kind of like downloading and seeing who wants to be in the lead. I just love it that you're over there. Ireland, you're my country.
Shout out, folks. That's his homeland.
That's my homeland right there in Ireland. Dublin, you're listening to me, and I absolutely love it. If there was any city in the world that I would love to have listen to me, it would be Dublin.
That's really rad,
and
man.
It's happening. It's
Folks,
amazing.
that is really epic. Listen to what he's saying. He literally launched a podcast less than 60 days ago?
It's a little under 2 months.
And you can have anyone, you guys, me and him are not like some prophet, as John Smith said. You can
Not even close.
You can do the damn thing just the same as us. You can do it.
It's awesome, my homeland.
And we will help you if you want to, but that's epic, man.
So I want to thank everybody. Remember, you can get a hold of me, the Recovery Atheist at gmail.com. You can also find me on YouTube channel, The Recovery Atheist, on Facebook, Del Bacon, The Recovery Atheist. Just put in Del Bacon. I'm the only one on the list, and add me. And then Spotify. If you're on the go anywhere, hey, man, woman, child, anybody, you can find me on so many different platforms. And just take me on the go. I would love to go with you. And thank you for listening, and thank you for being my audience. What do you got to say, JR?
I think that's great stuff, Del. I think it's an amazing episode. I think it's quality content, and it's quality dialogue, and it's forcing us to it's forced me, and I appreciate it, to think about what I believe in, why I believe it, and then incorporate all this stuff. And it keeps shaping me into the person I am and the beliefs I have, and it helps me. So I appreciate you. And at the same time, I always want to say it's not right.
Appreciate you too. Thanks for being with me.
It's not wrong. It's simply, folks, our perspective.
Peace out, everybody. Be safe.